I'm going to go a step further and not just show you in Linux, but show you the creation of a virtual machine for Linux as well. Because you might want, we might do more Linux work as we continue. So it might be useful for you to have a virtual machine with some Linux operating system installed. And I'll show you how to do that really quickly. So the first thing you want to do is you want to Google VirtualBox and download it. It's completely free. So download here. You might also want to download this that says here, the extension pack, all supported platforms. We'll see how to install this later. Not mandatory, but, you know, it's recommended for other things in the future. So now VirtualBox has been downloaded. We're going to install it. Installation is really easy. While this installs, you might want to go into Google and type Ubuntu. It's what we're going to be using for our Linux operating system. It's a simple operating system to use and to install, and it's, you know, very capable. So Ubuntu Desktop 20.04.3. It's the LTS version. That's perfectly fine. You click download. You don't have to pay anything. It will start downloading already. It's about 2.9 gigabytes, so it will take a while. I already have this downloaded, so I'm not going to download it again. The VirtualBox installation is just clicking next everywhere, so that's pretty simple. And so I'll take this time to explain a little bit what virtual machine is, even though I already did that in the beginning of the series. But essentially, the VirtualBox program we're downloading is an emulator, is an emulation software, which can emulate essentially in simple terms, the hardware necessary to run an operating system as if it were a real computer, leveraging your computer's resources for that. But it's an almost completely isolated system that uses only part of your resources to basically boot a different computer, a different machine. And we'll see that in action. This is really useful because you can do things like snapshots. So you can save the state of the machine, and then if you do something wrong, you can just go back to the state you were before. It's really useful for a lot of things, that being the most, one of them. The other thing being that you don't have to boot a whole system with your physical computer, so you can have multiple quote-unquote computers running at the same time, interacting with each other in a network or virtual network. So it's really useful. So now we have VirtualBox. Yay, awesome. What do we do with VirtualBox? Well, now's the time I go into my host machine to do this. So let's go into my host machine. Let's pop up VirtualBox here. Here we go. Okay, so VirtualBox. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is figure out where this is. Okay, I kind of don't want that there, so I'm going to do... Okay, so I'm going to click on New. I'm going to type Ubuntu. And as you type Ubuntu, it already kind of guesses what operating system you want based on the name. Because if we call it Ubuntu, you probably want Ubuntu. But if you're installing something else, if you want to install something else... Oh, you're not seeing this part. Oops. Okay, my bad. I guess I have to catch all the windows. Okay. Sorry. Let me real quick find it. There we go. So this is the new pop-up that appears. So I typed the name Ubuntu, so it kind of guesses that you want a Linux operating system called Ubuntu. But if you're installing something else and the name is not enough for it to guess, you should obviously manually change this to Linux and whatever Linux you want, or other if you don't, if it's not listed here. So just click next. 1 gig is more than enough. Create Next. Now here you can choose to be fixed size or dynamically allocated. It's just recommended to have it dynamically allocated because that means that you're specifying, say, like 100 gigabytes for the hard drive of this machine. And if it's fixed size, then these files are going to occupy 100 gigabytes, period, always. But if it's dynamically allocated, it's not occupying any memory until we fill it up. So it can occupy up to 100 gigabytes, but it's not occupying anything yet. And that's the dynamic memory. So I'm just going to put 100 gigabytes, but you can get away with less, or if you want more, but we don't really need it. Okay. But we're not done. Now you're going into settings for this machine. And let's figure out a few things here. So settings. So these are the settings that show up. Okay. So basically, this doesn't really matter too much. In your system, this is the resources that you're giving to your system. You're giving it a particular amount of memory, of RAM. You're giving it one processor in this case, and you can specify the execution cap. You have other features, but we don't care about this right now. You see that we have a boot order here. So first, it's going to try to find a floppy, which we can just disable because we're not going to have it. Then it's going to look for a CD in your optical drive, and then it's going to try to boot from your hard disk. So what we want to do, because if you try to boot this, then nothing will happen because you named it Ubuntu, but really there is no operating system yet in this hard drive. So we're going to go into storage here, and this is your hard drive. It's a virtual hard drive, a virtual disk. And here is your optical drive. So you're going to click on this little disk here, choose a disk file. In this case, it's actually this one. So, but choose a disk file. You go into where you have your ISO file downloaded, and you click on it, and there you go. Now it's here, and which just means it's basically like you put a CD with this image inside of this computer, right? And it's going to boot from it before it boots from the hard disk, which is what you want because this is what contains our installation of Ubuntu. Okay, let's click Start to start the machine now. And the machine has started, and we're going to look at it as soon as I can. There we go. Now, it might do some weird like system file check, whatever. I'm going to Control-C to skip this if I can. No, I can't anymore. No, I can still, never mind. Just so we don't waste time, we don't really need that to execute at this point. Now, we're almost done. We did... well, there's still a couple of things we need to do. So now it's booting Ubuntu, the installation, which, well, it's also like a live boot of the actual operating system, but it's designed for the installation. So how do we go about installing it? It's really, really easy, as you will see in just a couple seconds. I'm sorry, that was really loud. The same thing happened on stream, by the way. So, yeah, amazing. Okay, so this shows up. You wait for this to show up. And you can try Ubuntu, because this is like an operating system that you boot it into, and you can try it out. Or you can just install it. Let's install it. So we click Install. You can select your language first before clicking Install. You're going to choose your keyboard layout. For me, it's English US, but you can choose a different one. What would you like to install this? A normal installation, download updates. You can leave this on or off, depending on whether you want it to be on or off. but it basically just a decision of whether you want to install software that isn't open source, essentially, and from third parties. So yeah, you can do some nice advanced features, but we don't need to. But you can do some encryption, and other things as well. So we're just going to click install now and write changes. Yes, continue. And now we're going to wait. We're going to wait for this. Oh no, we still need to select our time zone, because and this is the part of the configuration where you choose your username and stuff. So my name is going to be darkharp. My computer's name, it's going to be our host name. I'm just going to call it white hat, and I'm going to make up a password. And there we go, continue. And that's it. You're pretty much done. Now you just have to wait. You have to wait for this to finish. Since I'm re-recording this video, I'm going to pause it until this finishes. It took a while, but it's done. So now we're going to click restart now. And you'll notice something, by the way, which is that this is a very small screen. So remove the installation and press enter. We don't need to do anything, just press enter. The screen is small, and if you try to make the screen bigger, it won't really, it doesn't change the size of the screen that you actually have to work with. And that's because we don't have the Virtualbox guest editions installed. We will install them, and we'll see exactly how to... it's really easy, just like a couple of clicks. And we're good to go. There's something weird here. I don't know why. Maybe because of the dragging and stuff. I'm just going to reset it. There we go. Now it's booting normally. Okay. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we booted in. We booted to our login prompt. We're going to put in our password that we chose while configuring. And now you should be graced with a desktop environment. I think. Well, I hope. Unless something goes wrong. There we go. Now you're just going to click skip if you want. Next, next, next. You can read through this if you want. All is good. Now, again, if you try to make this a bit bigger, you'll notice that it doesn't really change. There's just more gray area from the VirtualBox window. Well, the first thing you want to do when you... I'm going to remove a couple of things here because I'm not going to use them, and I don't want them occupying space here. I'm sorry. Okay. So I'm going to click on the Show Applications to get into the terminal. I just searched for terminal. And here we are. We are in our terminal. So the first thing I like to do is update the system. So I'm going to do a sudo apt update and sudo apt. If you want, you can do a disk upgrade, which will upgrade everything, including the kernel if it needs to. And now you just type your password, and there we go. Let's just do the remind me later. We're going to install a lot of the updates right now. So this might take a while, but it's not long enough that I need to pause the video or anything, I believe. Now, where are the guest additions to make, to make us be able to copy things from the machine into our host machine, and from our host machine there, share files, be able to maximize the screen and have the machine take the entire space, change the resolution based on the size of the window and everything. Where is that? Well, if you notice in your optical drives here, well, there isn't. Okay, so there is nothing here. If you had seen like another a VBox Guest Editions CD inside of here, then that would be what it's for. But since it's not here, we're going to click on Devices, and I don't know if you can see this because you click on Devices here, and then you have the last option, Insert Guest Edition CD Image. You don't need to. I don't need to like specifically show that because it's really self-explanatory, and this shows up. We don't want to run it right now, so I'm going to click Cancel, but you can run it if you want. I want to show what this is. And I want to run it after the updates are done as well. So this just contains a bunch of files. We are going to be running the outerrun.sh file. And if we're not running as root, it will prompt us for our password and all of that stuff. And it will install the guest editions. The guest editions for VirtualBox, what it does is it essentially allows you to use shared folders, shared clipboard, so you can copy paste from and to the machine, not only text and everything, but even files and folders, copy pasted between them, drag and drop, which sometimes doesn't work very well. Just better to use shared folders for that. We're going to definitely look into all of this a lot more when we do our series on reverse engineering and Linux, because we're going to have to deal with Linux a lot, or maybe not. Maybe we'll do it on Windows, but there's definitely going to be like a Linux-focused series at some point really soon, maybe even before the reverse engineering one, because I think it's something that everyone should know a little bit about. So yeah, this is taking a bit longer than I thought. So maybe I will pause it just for, maybe not. It's already done pretty much. There's no point in pausing. I'm really bad at video editing. That's why the YouTube videos are usually just my live streams, but uploaded on YouTube. Okay, now it's done now. That's awesome. So now we want to run this outerrun.sh. So we want to go into our CD-ROM. Our CD-ROM should be in the directory media. So if we change directory to this place, so cd /media, we'll see that we have dark-art inside of here. We're going inside. And now you'll see you'll have VBox GAS folder inside of here. We go inside of there too. And now you have a bunch of files, which is exactly what you have here. And you want to run the outerrun.sh. So outerrun.sh. It asks us for our password, which we promptly insert. And now it's just going to install the VirtualBox Guest Editions. You could have, instead of doing CD to change directory into all of those places, you could have just clicked on the CD button here and right-click somewhere blank and open in terminal. And now this is automatically open in the terminal, and all you have to do is /outerrun.sh. Now there is another problem that appeared, which is that we don't have make Perl and GCC. Surprisingly, GCC does not come with this installation of Ubuntu. Go figure. So we want to fix that before we install these guest editions again. So all we're going to do is sudo apt install GCC make Perl. I think make and Perl are already installed. Maybe not. We'll see. So sudo apt install GCC make Perl. Awesome. You put in your password. And it will ask you, yes, there we go. A couple of things are being, make is being installed. Okay. So we're installing these other things. And we're going to need them, incidentally, for C, at least make, almost definitely. and GCC. I'm saying almost definitely because I'm planning to do things with make files and everything later on in this, still in this series. So now that it's installed, I'm going to just run the outerrun thing again. So outerrun.sh, typing in your password, and we're going to check if that error comes up again, and it shouldn't really. It's just, you don't have to do this step. It would work anyway, I believe, but I'm just trying to make sure. Oh, meanwhile, if we maximize and minimize, you can still see that the window doesn't change sizes, but after the reboot is gonna, which is gonna happen soon, you'll notice that this will change. So yeah, there was no error now, which is good, which tells us that we installed make, Perl, and GCC correctly. Okay, so you can see here, running kernel modules will not be replaced until the system is restarted. So that's why we have to restart the system. But that's really easy. We're just going to type reboot. And we're going to reboot the system. There we go. Now, as we wait for the reboot to happen, I'm going to mention the editors. So there are a lot of different editors that you can use in Ubuntu. You can use VS Code as well, but you can also use other ones. I'm going to use a different one here, I believe, because that's what I did on the live stream, and I think it's just less resource intensive and just better overall for this purpose. Okay, I'm going to put my password. Notice now, if you do your maximize and whatever, still doesn't change, but right after you put your password and you enter the desktop environment, you wait a little bit, then you should notice that you should be able to change the windows, and it should, there we go. Awesome. You can even put it in full screen. There we go. And for full screen to work, it needs to actually be like this. Okay, so now we're in full screen. Awesome. I'm going into the show my applications again, and maybe we shouldn't be in full screen so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So I'm going to exit from full screen. There we go. So this is a bit better because now you can see what I'm doing. Awesome. So I'm going to go into show applications and the terminal again. And I'm going to just drag this over here just so that we can have the terminal in our lateral bar. I kind of wanted to like find out how I could change only, well, it's here, right? Yeah, it's here. Let's do so like 16 for the stream, and we can, there we go. Okay. So now if we type GCC, you'll notice, there we go, fatal error, no input files, just like before. GCC-V, you'll see a bunch of different details about it. Now let's create our program. Well, for that, we need to actually download a visual, an editor. So you can use Vim. What? Vim is not installed by default. Well, you can install Vim, but if Vim is not installed by default, you have Nano, which is an editor. You probably should have VI. Yeah, exactly. Oops. There we go. And you should also have gedit. Yeah. All of these are kind of, these are good, but for you at this stage, I would recommend installing Sublime Text. It's an okay editor. Works pretty well on Linux. It's a cross-platform, but I just don't like VS Code on Linux. I don't know why. I just don't like it. So Sublime download, and we're going to click on sublimetext.com website, and we're going to, yeah, so download has been released, blah, blah. Wait, really? Cool. Well, just click there, and you're going to click on the Linux repos, and it's going to tell you how to install this. And you can see the details for different package managers. We're using Ubuntu. So we're using the apt one. So we're going to just complete the guide that is displayed in here. So we're going to install the GPG key like this. Awesome, it says okay. We're going to, this should already be installed, I believe, but maybe it isn't. It isn't, okay. So you install that with this command. Now you can choose between the stable and the development version. I'm just going to go with the stable, but you can choose. Oops. There we go, that's it. And now you do well, I'm just going to do this manually. So you do an update to update the repository, well, the repository, right? And we're going to install our Sublime Text. That's it. Oops. Interesting. Okay, so something is using our apt. What is using our apt? Oh no, nothing is using it. I just did not do a sudo. Remember to do sudo before your commands, guys. Yeah, because at first I saw like could not open, so I was like, oh, the lock. Okay, so something might be using it, but then I realized. Okay, so now it's done, it's installed. So how do we open it? Well, if you go into show all applications, it should show up there, right? Because we installed it. And you'll notice that if we go down, there it is, Sublime Text right here. You can also open it by the command subl, I think. There you go. And this is Sublime Text. Awesome. So we're going to go into Documents. And there's nothing here. We're going to make a directory called coding. And actually, no, we're going to make another directory called C. So we're going to cd into that. We're in this directory. Now we're going to open Sublime in this directory. So we can specify a particular directory to a particular path to open. And if that path is a file, it will open that file. If it's a directory, it will load this directory. Now we can create files. So we can right-click here, new file, and we can Control S to save it. Save it as, for example, hello_world.c. We're doing our C program again. There you go. And now we're gonna start coding. Oh, you save it. And you notice that this is appears here as one of your files, because obviously it's one of your files. So let's do int main, printf, hello world. Awesome. So this is pretty much all that we need. Return 0, so that we can return a particular type. Also make sure, I'm not going to do this just so you can see what happens. So let's, so we're here. So we now know how to compile this. So gcc hello world.c -o hello world. We don't need the .exe because this is Linux, and it's an ELF binary. It's not an executable file. They're different formats, so we don't need the .exe here. So this is all we need to do. And another file just appeared here, which is our program. And if you run it, it prints hello world. Now we might want to add a new line character here just so that it's so that this line continues in a new line and not right after the world. But yeah, you notice that there is a warning, and that warning is because I'm implicitly declaring the function printf. And so yeah, you can compile this without including the library, because it will assume that you want to include that library and it will be included for you. But it gives you a warning anyway because of its implicit declaration. So you just put your include stdio.h, and now there is no warning. Hello world, there we go. And we're done. This is how you do it on Linux.